Hello golfers, PGA teaching professional Todd Cope, Director of Instruction for the Sanford Power Golf Academy. Welcome to this night's live session. I got my good friend Sam Vossler here. Sam, we have got a fun night planned for the crew, don't we?
We have a great night. Sit down, get your popcorn out. We're going to have a great time telling you what you can do at home here.
So tonight's big topic that we're talking about is things that you can do at home to play better golf. And as we've been doing these live sessions over the last week, we had a lot of fun last week, and we appreciate those of you who've stopped back again this week, and hopefully you've shared some of this with your friends. The whole purpose of these is to have us come together, talk about golf, for us to share some of our knowledge about golf and ways that can help you improve. And we always like to start by saying, hopefully, you're being safe at home. You're listening to the healthcare providers. You're taking good care of yourself because the golf season is coming quickly. For some of you, you're probably already out golfing. We want to make sure that we're healthy and ready to go.
Definitely.
All right. So tonight we're going to be talking about different things that we can do at home to help us improve our golf game. And so we're going to really break this down into a couple different segments. First of all, we're going to talk about just some basic things that you can be doing that don't even relate to holding a golf club. Then we're going to talk about some body movement and some full swing stuff. Then we're going to dive into some putting and also some chipping. And then at the end, we're going to do one of our favorite things, which is kind of our speed round and answering your questions. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our channel here at US Golf TV. Be sure that you're following us at the Sanford Power Golf Academy. We got all types of great stuff happening. So Sam, any opening things you'd like to share with some of our audience about what we're going to be doing here tonight?
So like Todd mentioned, just thinking a little outside the box, what's some different ways without even moving, thinking about the golf swing that we can get better. So to start out, during these times, maybe you're spending a little more time at home. Okay, there's podcasts out there, there's books out there that are great reading material that can kind of start to fire that brain up, get excited once the weather is good. It's about to turn out here in Sioux Falls, so that's good. But that would be the start. Just start thinking outside the box. How are you going to get better at golf? Podcasts and books would be one to start, Todd.
Yeah, I think podcasts, books, simple things like that I don't even think we think about. Maybe it's time to get your clubs re-gripped. Have you put down some goals for yourself that you want to achieve this year? For those of you who play tournament golf at some point, we're going to start playing tournament golf again. For the junior golfers out there, have you got your schedule put together? Have you gathered your information? Are you ready to go? And so there's a lot of things that we could be doing that don't relate to swinging a golf club.
Yeah, and another thing to add to that with goals is what's your practice plan? Getting these things knocked out right away, Todd. I think you're just going to be that much more ready to roll. And, if you are in the competitive field, you're going to have a leg up on your competitors.
So you guys know how we like to do this. So if you got any questions, be sure to start firing those questions in there. We also like to hear where people are from.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite things is to look back on this and see where everybody's from. All these people who love golf. So be sure to put some of that in there. And when we talk about books, we actually did a book for those of you out there who slice the golf ball. We did a book just about a year ago called The Science of the Slice. It's a free book. It's got some great information and there's some really good illustrations. If you're interested in that, we'll put that stuff in the chat of how you can get that and get free access to that. But let's dive right into this. People want to know how they can start playing better golf at home. Sam, let's first of all start talking about the pivot and getting the body warmed up. Where do you want to start here?
So the pivot is a common language or a word that a lot of golf instructors are using right now, Todd. So before we even think about moving the golf club, we got to get our body to move well. So if the body moves well, the club's going to get into the positions or the movement pattern we want. So what we like to do here at the Golf Academy and with US Golf TV is get people to understand what the pivot is. It's your upper body and it's your lower body. So people tend to think it's just one thing, but we kind of have the torso that moves and we also have our lower body that moves. So Todd's actually going to start out. He's going to give you just a simple warm-up exercise that can actually help with your upper body.
All right, so I'm going to give you that club right now. So when we start talking about the pivot, we're going to dive into the full swing. And some things you can be doing at home to work on your full swing. So I'm just going to talk about upper body. So we do know this, that when we're swinging the golf club, the upper body is rotating, and it rotates at an angle or a plane, whatever word you want to use. Okay, so one of the things you can do that's very simple is I like to take your arms, kind of stick them out, almost like you're making a T, all right, and then get in your golf posture, and just go ahead and rotate back and through. And what you want to notice or what you want to feel here is that when I make a backswing, notice where my lead hand, my left hand is at. And as I go forward, I want to make sure that my trail hand, which is my right hand, in essence replaces where my left hand already was. So this way I know that I'm maintaining pretty good posture through the golf motion. I'm also feeling some stretch in my upper body, and I'm rotating on good angles. Lots of us, when we're swinging the golf club, we come out of posture early. So we get set up, And when we swing back, we come up and out of posture. So this simple drill, extending your arms, putting them in a T formation, and just rotating back and through, it's a simple, easy way for you to feel how your body should be rotating.
So with that, Todd, I mean, are you focused on keeping your head still right away? Or are you just trying to get your body loose? Or
I'm just trying to get my body loose. I'm trying to get moving. So really good point Sam makes there. One of the big false things in golf is you got to keep your head down and keep your head still. So your head can move. Your eyes should be looking at the ball, but your head can move a little bit. So as I'm moving here, I'm actually shifting some weight too. So if you've watched any of our stuff, Sam's going to dive a little bit into the lower body stuff, but if you've watched any of our stuff, we're big believers in starting with a little bit more weight or pressure on our lead foot. So we start with maybe 60 on our lead foot, and we push that towards our trail foot. So when I'm doing this drill, I'm starting left, and I'm pushing to the right. And that movement of shifting from front to back gives me some momentum.
that's great advice there. Just again, opening up, trying to get loose with the upper body. So I'm going to give the clubs over to Todd here.
All right, we'll switch spots.
We're going to switch spots. So actually I had a coach tell me this one time. A lot of times if you run, you don't have much time to do a warm-up. I had a coach, Gene Miranda, actually, he's out of the Air Force Academy. He said, you need to feel like as if you're going for a run. That's almost have to, if you can do anything, get the body loose, and you're actually going to probably hit the ball okay. So just think about that. If you have 5 minutes before your tee time, get loose, do some of these motor patterns. They'll probably have you hit the ball well. So we talked about the upper body, so now we're going to talk about the lower body. So with the pivot in our hips, we know, like Todd said, we're kind of moving on the circular kind of plane. Same thing with our lower body. If we're shoulder width apart, I want you to think about what my hips are doing. So when I actually turn my pivot, this right hip is actually going to kind of release and get a little bit taller. So you can kind of see my knee flex. This right knee or trail knee for a right-hand golfer is going to kind of turn and get taller. So we're going to do a little drill here to make sure that we're learning how to kind of turn into this right hip, Todd. So you're going to be shoulder width apart. You're just going to put your hands across your chest. And what you're going to do is you're going to bring your lead foot and you're just going to cross it just barely over the toe. And you're really going to feel like you're turning into that right hip like this. So as you can see, I'm also implementing a little bit of that left shoulder is also going over my right hip. And all this is doing, again, is creating some awareness of where I should be with my pressure or the feeling into my right hip. A lot of golfers tend to kind of slide instead of learn how to rotate. So that's kind of combining both of them together, and I think that's a good start, just getting warmed up.
And so when you're doing that, that's a wonderful drill there, because I love that feeling of, we're big believers in teaching the pivot, because if you don't pivot correctly, it's going to be hard to swing the club correctly. And helping people feel a proper backswing movement in their lower body is huge. So when you're doing that, because I've done this drill,
Yeah.
it's really good. Where are you as a golfer? Where do you feel it? Do you feel it right in your hip? I have some people tell me they feel it more in their glute. I've had people tell me they feel it in their heel. Where do you feel it at?
Great question. I think you can make yourself aware when you do this. When you're doing this, like Todd said, kind of in your right glute, if you do this well, and you move that toe, again, you're not trying to go way past it. A lot of people are very flexible, so this is also just an awareness. But you're going to feel it in your right or trail glute. You're also going to feel pressure into your trail heel. So that first movement, when this hip starts to turn in the golf swing, most of that pressure should feel relatively like it's kind of working back to your trail heel.
What I love about that too is that you're shifting weight.
Yes.
You mentioned that earlier. So we start a little left side heavy for me, right-hand golfer, lead side heavy, and I shift over. And by just moving, you're literally shifting your weight. You're shifting the pressure on your feet also in the golf swing. Really good. So could you do that and hit balls?
Absolutely. That's kind of the next step of it, Todd. So we're just talking, if you're at home and you don't have the space to hit those golf balls, but you could literally do this in a drill. So you start out with that. If we're kind of looking down the line here, let's say after doing it without a club, I get in here, I do the same thing. So someone who really struggles to turn, then I can just release this foot and hit golf shots. So that's kind of like that next advanced step where we're working on the motion, and then we're going to put a ball in the way and we're just going to swing through little half shots.
I'm not going to hit balls. I will listen up.
Yeah,
we're going to lose viewers if we start hitting balls.
Yep.
We haven't been loose. Okay, so those are a couple things you can do, just some body movement, body awareness. This is fantastic. We're getting a ton of questions already being fired up here. Keep those coming, because in a short time we're going to do a speed round and start answering all these. We got guys from Indiana, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Virginia, Georgia, we got a lot of Midwest people.
We do.
they're ready to get
That's
outside.
where we're from, so we're all right with that.
We love that. So keep putting those in there. Keep putting your questions in there. All right, so let's dive into the actual golf swing, all right? And we're going to go through a couple checkpoints, some things that you can do at home in front of a mirror, some basic stuff that you can look at. I'm going to go through some of those. And then Sam's going to talk about the takeaway.
Yes.
So these are things that you can do at home and you can do in front of a mirror. So Sam, why don't you go ahead and get set. Let's get a golf ball in place. And guys, why don't you grab me an alignment rod if you could over there. We're going to go through a couple of things here. We got the full team on staff tonight. We got our main man, Nick, is behind the camera as always, taking good care of us. And we got Justin and Josh, our interns. They're here helping us out. So we've got the full team here ready to go. All right, so let's get you set up there. So let's talk about some basic things that you could look for in your setup. So as Coach Bosser set up in there, all right, I'm just going to talk about mostly body. We're not talking a lot about the grip, although obviously the grip is important. We could spend an entire session talking about the grip, but we're going to talk mostly about the body in this setup. So first thing I'm going to look for in this setup is I want his feet about shoulder width apart. Now what club you got there, Coach?
I got a 7-iron.
Okay, so 6-iron, 7-iron. I want to see his feet roughly around shoulder width apart. I also want to see his toes, his lead foot and his trail foot flared just ever so slightly. So you'll notice how if this was a straight line, he's got his feet flared just a little bit. So from the camera view, if this is square, he's got his trail foot flared a little bit and his lead foot flared a little bit. Now the reason that's important, especially for older golfers, is that as you get tight and tense as we age, okay, you want to flare those feet a little bit because it allows you to rotate and move a little bit, all right? So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for about shoulder width apart, and I'm looking for a little bit of flare. Now also, on his feet, I want to see a little bit more pressure on his lead foot, specifically kind of towards the ball of his lead foot. So kind of right where the shoelaces are. We're going to talk about that in a second. Okay, so maybe 60% here, maybe 40% right there, okay? Hopefully that kind of makes sense. Now, from the body standpoint, after we look at the feet, go ahead and get set in there, Coach. I'm basically looking at one checkpoint. I want to see his hands fall basically right below his shoulders. So I just got this alignment right here. You can see this falls straight down. Notice how his hands are pretty much right in line with that. And he's got a little bit of knee flex. All right, so at the end of the day, he's got a little bit of toe flare, about shoulder width apart with his feet. Little bit of pressure on his lead foot compared to his trail foot, and his hands are kind of below his shoulders. All right, now the only other thing I'm going to say on this, and then we're going to turn it over to Sam, we're going to talk a little bit about the takeaway, is that notice how he's got just kind of nice relaxed posture. I'm not a big advocate of trying to have this perfectly straight back posture. If that's not how you normally stand, and you have a little bit of rounded shoulders, that's okay. Because anytime you start forcing positions, you're going to start to limit some of your ability to rotate and things like that. So anything you'd add to that, Coach?
It's a great point. I think at the end of the day, if you can set up well, because this is the one thing you can control before you hit golf balls, right?
Yeah.
So the golf swing is already a motion, it's complex, but if we can simplify it with good setup, grip, you're going to be in a great spot.
So all things you can check for yourself in front of the mirror. All right, so let's go ahead and switch spots.
All right.
Let me jump in here. We're going to talk a little bit about the takeaway. What are some things they can look for in the takeaway?
Yeah, so if I could have actually Josh grab me, he's going to grab an item here that we're going to work on. So the takeaway, just so we know, so Todd, if you could set up in there from the start. So at address, everyone knows what the takeaway position in here. I'm going to show you. The takeaway is essentially from address up to about this position where the club is about parallel to the ground. So that is called P1 or takeaway position. So this is a crucial part in the golf swing. It sets up the rest of the backswing. So there's a couple things we want to look for in this. Two things. One, we have the club face. So the club face and the position that in is absolutely crucial so we can hit the ball solid in the face. A lot of times we see all sorts of club face positions with this. Sometimes we see that face open up a lot. Okay, so when I mean open up, it's going to kind of point up to the sky like this. Sometimes people tend to kind of keep it too low towards the ground. Generally speaking, for most golfers, we'd love to see this club face, this angle you can kind of see on the club is going to match Todd's back or his spine. So that's a general position that we like to see. One is just the club face. So if we do that, we also want to talk about something else, just the general motion. So the big thing with golf is obviously a lot of people work on positions, but we also have to understand that the golf swing is a motion. So you can see when we're making this motion, there's two parts. There's the club head and there's the handle. So when Todd moves this, he can do two different things with this. He could actually move his handle out and the club could work in. So he could do that. He could also work the handle in and the club way out. So generally speaking, what we like to see with the takeaway is we like to see the handle, so where his hands are, working over his toe, kind of over his shoelaces, if you pretend there's a line there. And then you have the club, as you can see, that's it's over this hole out here. So the hands are slightly in, the club is out, so pretending there's a kind of a line right here. So if I had a line and stick, Todd takes it back, his hands are gonna be inside of his club face line. So that would be number 2. So we have club face position and then this general motion that we relatively want to see.
So those are a couple really good checkpoints, like Coach Sam said right there, being aware of where the club head is relative to your hands, then also the orientation of the club face.
I'm going to show them one thing that you can actually use at home. So I'm going to use the kettlebell here. Okay. So one thing that you can do if you don't even have the golf club and you're really struggling with kind of this motion, you could take this with a dumbbell or anything. And you're just going to put the club here. A lot of people tend to kind of have this problem with rolling the club face open. Also, this weight is just going to make you kind of move your arms in a motion. Start it out in front of your lead foot and let it just kind of fall over your right foot. And that's going to help you kind of just feel what the general start of the motion of the swing is. So again, you can do this, a kettlebell, you can use a dumbbell, and just something that's going to help you kind of feel like your arms are working in. And when you have that golf club, then you're obviously going to be working on the club face position.
Fantastic. A couple really good things that you can do at home there to work on your setup and some stuff. So all right, we're going to get into a little bit of a speed round now. We're going to answer a few questions. Keep those questions coming. We love hearing from you. Then we're going to start diving into a little bit. We got a couple other things I think we want to show on full swing too. But so one of the questions we got, Sam, is how can I tell if I'm hitting the ball well? This is from Rob. How can I tell if I'm hitting the ball well when I'm hitting shots into a net? Great question. What are you going to tell somebody?
I think the net, for one, sometimes people overvalue hitting into the net, or undervalue, excuse me. So when you're hitting into a net, sometimes it's great because you're working on some technical stuff.
Yeah.
So I think the sound is obviously important in knowing that. We're going to have a hard time knowing where the ball's going. But the key and the one biggest, I think the key factor is knowing where that ball goes to start off the face. So if the ball comes off the face relatively straight in the net, you know for one variable that club face is coming through square. As far as contact goes, that's another thing. I think we all have felt when we've hit a really solid shot, we know the sound of it. That would be the other kind of feel that we'd have. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the key when you're hitting balls into a net, as I agree with Coach Sam, is you want to be hitting some balls, but really what you're doing is you're getting swings in.
Yes.
You know, and hitting some balls into a net is a good thing. I wouldn't advocate hitting hundreds and hundreds of balls into the net, but hitting a few balls into a net and getting a feel for where it's at in the club face, you know, what does it feel like, I think is really good. All right, a couple other ones here. So, okay, I'll start with this one. What is the proper setup for an iron versus a hybrid? So, generally speaking, all right, with an iron, we want the ball to be pretty much off like the logo on a shirt. So, I got my Travis Matthews shirt on here. I want the ball to be positioned pretty much off that, or kind of like the left side of my face. The lead side for me, if I'm hitting a hybrid, I'm going to move that just a little bit more forward, maybe off my ear. And if I'm hitting a driver, I'm going to work off my lead toe. So irons, not quite center, just a little bit forward of center. Hybrid, a little bit more forward. And then with your driver, you're even going to be more than that. So, and one other one here, we're going to fire off for Sam. What happens if the handle goes out and the club goes inside? We see this a lot with golfers. What do you got?
We do, and I think if you tune in on Wednesday, we're going to have some great drills that will help with this. So we'll be doing that at 5 p.m. I think the key, what would happen with that, is it's important to have a good relationship between the handle and the club head going up. So in that example, if the handle kind of works out and the club works behind us, the balance of the club is going to be off at the top, Todd. And we can see all sorts of things. We can see shanks, we can see hooks, slices. So I think that takeaway is essential to get kind of the relationship between the handle and the club head in place.
I think so. I see a lot of slicing when I see the handle go up and the club goes in. I see a lot of, okay, so guys, let's grab the ball. I want to show one other quick training aid, and then we're going to move over to do some, so Coach, go ahead and grab that and get set up there. So
okay.
This is probably one of our favorite training aids. This is right here from Tour Striker. It's just, they call it like the smart ball. If you've watched any of our stuff, we use this all the time. It's like, we call it like our vegetables. Like you got to hit some shots with our vegetables here with the ball. It's just good part of their daily practice. My good buddy Martin Chuck, who I went to college with, came up with this not more than a few years ago now. So go ahead and show. So basically, go ahead and get set up there, and I'll put it in there for you. So you're going to take your regular setup. Just take the ball, put it somewhere up here, kind of between your forearms there. You're going to give it a little bit of squeeze, and just go ahead and take it up to the top there, Coach. And all you're going to do is just feel like you're squeezing that. squeezing the ball, going all the way up. And when you feel that, it's going to really help get your arms and everything in a good position. And you can go ahead and hit balls with this, but this is a great way for you if you're making some practice swings at home, in the yard, or in the garage if you've got a net. You'll be good to go there. So that's pretty much the one training aid. So a couple ideas there in the setup and the swings like that. So should we head on over? Let's head on over and talk a little bit about some putting.
Let's do it.
Okay, we're going to move over here to putting. Keep those questions coming. We're going to talk more now about putting.
There you go. Take that club from you.
There you go. Okay, so putting, we all know that putting is a huge part of the game. I mean, I don't know if it's half, but it's up there. I don't know, 43% or 42%, wherever you want to come. So there's a lot of things we can do with putting at home that can really help us out. And so let's talk a little bit about, first of all, about the setup. Okay, so let me just go through a couple things in this setup that I'm going to be looking for as a coach that you can practice at home in front of a mirror. And then we want to get some input from Coach Sam here. So basically, go ahead and get set up there once, Coach, like you're going to hit a putt.
Okay.
So from a setup position, what I'm looking for is a couple things. The first thing that I always notice is how you're holding the club. What is your grip like? And what the key thing that I'm looking for here is I like to see the putter shaft in line with the forearm. So if his forearms are kind of at this angle, I want to see that as the same angle as the putter shaft. Show the viewers what would be different than that, Coach. Yeah. So his forearm is at that angle, and the putter shaft is at a different angle, or this would be the opposite. Putter shaft straight up. Notice the forearms are this way. Okay, and the putter shaft is that way. So what you want to make sure is that you're holding the putter in such a form or fashion that the shaft angle is basically in line with the forearms. Now, some people like to be a little bit more up. Go ahead and show them what upright and in line. Yeah, that would be okay. And some people like to be a little bit lower, okay? Either one of those really works, but that would be a good checkpoint for you there. Now, the next thing I'm going to look for in the setup, let's go ahead and face the camera this time, is I want the shoulders to be relatively level. Now, I think the trail shoulder, which is the right shoulder, can be slightly lower than the lead shoulder. But I'm just trying to look at the general flow of that. I don't want to see anything crazy where they're one way. What would it look like, Coach, if they had the, yeah. So we see some of this, right? Shoulders are really tilted. Very seldom do we see the other.
Yes.
I mean, you could, but typically we see that. So I want to see shoulders that are basically relatively level. Trail shoulder can be a little bit lower just because of how the hands are placed on the grip. Now from this position, I want to show, I'm looking for two other things in this setup that you can check at home. Number one is I'm looking for ball position, and I'm looking at the shaft angle. So I want to see the ball position basically just slightly forward of center. So if I used his coat right here as a guideline, this would be center. I want to see that ball just ever so slightly forward of center. And then most importantly, this is probably the biggest area that you can really watch, make progress on, is I want to see the shaft angle in a neutral position. Most people have it too far back. What does that look like, Coach, if they have their, So when their hands are too far back, that adds loft to the putter, they really struggle with distance. If you struggle with your distance control, check that out. I suppose they could have their hands too far forward, going sort of, we don't see that a lot, but it is possible. So those are a couple of checkpoints. I'm looking for the angle of the putter shaft relative to the forearms. I'm looking generally at the shoulders. I want to see them pretty close to level. Trail shoulder may be tilted a little bit. Okay, I'm looking at ball position, then I'm looking at shaft angle. What are some things you'd like to look for?
Yeah, I would say one other thing, and it's all connected, is relative to where the ball's at, where's my eye line. So a lot of times, and this has to do directly with posture, but a lot of times we tend to see people that are sitting too far back. So from this angle, you'd see someone, and if you drop the ball, we often do this with students or any of our lessons, we'll drop a ball, and if they drop it from their lead eye, I'd drop it and it'd probably fall below my heel line or closer to my toe line. So I want to make sure when we do this, if I get my eye, over the leading edge of that putter, that's really going to help me be in a good spot with my posture. So if my posture's off, that's going to dictate other factors such as my path, and that would even change my aim a little bit.
Okay, so let's talk about a couple quick training aids because we've got a ton. Let's grab the Reimer there. Let's throw that down there. And I'm going to grab it, guys, grab us a couple more balls if you would, please. Yep. And so talk to our viewers a little bit about, this is one of our favorite training aids. One of our friends here from Sioux Falls invented this. How do we use this for ball position, things like that? Thanks.
So the Reimer and what it has on it, if you can't see it, basically has letters. And so it has letters from A to O. And so this is really important. Sometimes people really overlook ball position, whether it's full swing, whether it's putting, but ball position is absolutely crucial, Todd, especially on a day-to-day basis, and we just need to make sure that we're being consistent with this. So specifically with putting, ball position, you know, we tend to be very, very, you know, detailed with our full swing. How about putting? If we're off a half a ball or even a quarter a ball, you know, day to day with our putting, that could drastically change our aiming, how that ball's coming off the face. So in this situation, like Todd mentioned, just kind of a little bit off of center, forward of center is kind of a good ball position. So with the Reimer, you know, I'm looking directly at this. If I look at it, my ball position, again, I'm going the distance that I need to for my lead foot and trail foot, I'm about at an H right now. And so with an H, again, what it's going to allow me to do is consistently set up every single time my feet width as well as the ball position. And Todd, tell us a little bit more about maybe what's an optimal ball position. What are we trying to do with a good ball position? What's actually happening?
Yeah, so the key with the ball position is that, you know, ideally you want to be catching the ball as the putter is traveling in an ever so slightly ascending motion.
Yes.
Okay, so it's just, you don't want to ever be catching the ball as the putter's traveling down. At the bottom of the arc, okay, some people would argue with that. Most of the science, most of the stuff that we know, that you're going to get your optimum rolls that if you catch the ball as the putter's traveling in an ever so slightly upward motion. That's why the ball position is so important,
Yes.
and also the angle of the shoulders, because your ball position is going to be dictated by those things. So, like Coach Sam was saying, if you have your shoulders really tilted, well, now the bottom of your arc of your putting stroke is going to be back versus forward. So you just got to make sure you got the right matchup. That's why we like to use different types of tools and training aids where somebody can check it. So as a coach, somebody comes in here, Coach Sam gets them exactly where he wants them. They check out, okay, where is that at? They mark that spot. Now they can repeat that every single time. And so that would be the key right there in terms of that.
And what you can do with this was actually brought up last week, but if you have an alignment stick or even anything that you can put this down, you can actually mark what your ball position is. So we do this with our students. We'll put it where our front foot or trail foot is, ball position, and we encourage people to do this because when you set this down, every single time, the biggest thing we see is people are inconsistent with their setup.
100%. So those are a couple things just in the setup. So let's talk a little bit now, Coach, about the motion. Give us what are some things that they can be doing at home? I'm going to switch spots with you here so you can kind of take the lead here. Talk to us a little bit about what could we be doing to work on the motion?
Great question. So again, the golf, even a putting stroke is not, you know, static. It's something that is a motion and we're rolling the ball. I think first think of the motion as not hitting the ball, but rolling through it. So two things that control kind of the general motion, okay? First, that was a great question brought up last week. We talked about what kind of starts the golf swing,
Yeah.
and I think it depends a lot on your skill. But at some motion, if we're connected with the good setup that Todd brought up earlier, we're going to be able to feel like our arms and our shoulders and everything is just pretty connected. So we need to work on our length of motion. Again, length of motion is how far back and how through you're going to bring it through. And then the number two thing is cadence or tempo. So those two things together is going to create kind of the harmony of how far, how fast, how slow, how big that ball, how far it's going. So those are the two factors you have to work on. So what we like to use here at the Golf Academy is just a simple metronome. So if we have a metronome that is, you know, you can download an app for free. And if you've ever been in a music class or anything, your lead band instructor, they're going to have something that kind of keeping the beat for the whole band to stay on track. So we use that, and that really helps people get on track so they're not changing their cadence or their tempo based off of how long the stroke is or how far they are.
Yeah, using the metronome was one of our favorite drills, and so you just work to the beats of it. And typically what we like to do is we like the putter to pass the impact zone on each beat. So it's kind of, you know, back and through, just to create some form of rhythm and tempo. And some people are a little quicker, some people are a little slower. We talked some about that last week in one of our stuff. So typically somewhere around 72 to 80 beats per minute is a pretty good general spot for you. But tempo and rhythm is key component. And I would add to that when that putter is coming in, the reason we love that drill is because the putter, when it's coming into impact, should be maintaining speed.
Yes.
Whatever that speed is that's required to get the ball to travel where you want it to, the putter should be at that speed before impact, and it should be basically at that same speed after impact. If you're struggling with your distance control, it's either because your putter is accelerating into impact or it's actually decelerating. And this drill that Coach Sam just gave you is an excellent one. So, all right, we're going to do a couple more questions here. Then we got some other stuff that we want to show you here in terms of some stuff. So keep the questions coming. We're gonna keep rapid firing those out there. So, all right, Coach, let me ask you this one. Great question here. Will a left hand low grip balance my shoulders? And what do you think about that?
Yeah, I do think it will. Again, naturally thinking about a conventional grip, the right hand is lower than the left on the grip, so that's what naturally gives you kind of that shoulder. So, I mean, if that's your sole reason for going left hand low, I think there should be more reasons why you're doing that. There's some great putters out there, but you just have to be aware of what's best for you. I think, and we're going to get into it with another question here, what's the best grip for you? I think that really just depends, but it will balance out your shoulders because, again, your lead hand is going to be lower now on the grip. And for someone that really struggles with that, maybe you struggle with your angle of attack if you're coming up on the ball too much or you tend to go down, being aware of your shoulder alignment and the levelness is really important.
Yeah, I think Coach, he said it perfectly right there. If your left hand is lower, it's going to level your shoulders more. You just got to make sure it's your ball position and it all kind of matches up. It's very similar to here's talk a lot about this, a lot about the matchups. And that's one of the things we're a big believer in here at the Sanford Power Golf Academy and at US Golf TV is that we're trying to provide information, but ultimately we're here to help you out with your own golf journey.
Yes.
There's not one path to play great golf. There are multiple paths to playing great golf. And part of this is really on you and your own journey to figure out what works well for you. So, like Coach said, if you feel more comfortable with your left hand lower, that's great. We just got to make sure then that we have the ball matched up and the things in place to match that style of grip. I have other players who like their right hand a little bit lower, and that's okay too because they can feel it there and stuff. And so it goes a little bit into like what's the right way to grip a putter. To me, I think there's a lot of ways to do it.
There is.
Okay, here's one thing that I do look at, and that is that I think that the hands, this is a really good tip I picked up from David Orr, who's a great putting coach, and he just showed me this a couple weeks ago. But basically, one of the things you want to look for is that your hands should match each other. So you'll notice my palms are facing each other, so I can take my middle fingers here and kind of match them up like this. Now I know that my wrists are matching. Okay, now whether they're more up or down, or my left hand's lower, or my right hand's lower, that's personal preference, okay? What I don't want to see, though, is I don't want to see one hand turned over, one hand turned under, or vice versa. So in terms of what makes a grip the correct grip, one is it's up to you, but number two is I do think that the wrist angles need to match each other so that they're relatively neutral. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think there's just certain checkpoints. Again, doesn't mean, that there are certain things that all great putters have. I also think it's important to just kind of know how you anatomically stand. So if you're someone like this, I wouldn't recommend holding the putter like this, because your hands naturally want to kind of be like this. So find that natural spot, just like Todd did for the full swing. Wherever my hands kind of naturally fall below my shoulders, this isn't natural. This isn't natural for me to be kind of upright or down here. Whatever your body, everyone has different body types, even with putting.
Okay, one other question, then we're going to move on to some other training aids. Keep the questions coming because we're answering those as quickly as we can. All right, so another question is, can I work on my pre-shot routine at home?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is big. This gets me excited right here. So again, pre-shot routine is something that includes a lot of things. It comes through a couple steps. I would say first, even with putting or full swing, you're considering what your target is, Todd.
Yeah.
So you're going through the process. What are you shooting? Whether that's with your eyes or whatever, what's the slope? You're taking in information. So this part, again, is even before you step up. I consider the pre-shot routine from when you put the ball down or put your coin down, you're going through your process. The third thing with that is you got to have some sort of visualization process. I think this is an area that gets a little bit, just visualize, it's very vague, but I do think we can give you some good ideas as far as like what you're doing with your imagery, how you're looking at the hole, how it's supposed to enter the hole. These are all things that you can work on. You can still putt at home and do these things. So I think that's a big part of it is the pre-shot routine is a process, and a lot of the stuff you do, it's even before you're not actually hitting the ball.
I would agree with that. I think it goes back to the very first thing we said. What are some things you can do at home? Well, the first thing is you can just literally write down your pre-shot routine.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be just with putting. You can be practicing in your full swing as well, or all types of different things there also. So make sure that you're doing that not just for your putting, but even your full swing as well. All right, now let's go. I want to show you guys a couple other quick training aids. Keep the questions coming, and then we're going to move into some chipping stuff. So I'm going to show them a little about the laser, Coach, and then you can show them a little bit about, we got a ruler down there that I know you're going to use for something. So, all right, so one of our favorite things is just a straight laser. And we've used these for years. You can buy really nice, fancy ones. This is just one we picked up at the local hardware store, and you just, obviously you just turn it on. Might be a little hard to see on the camera there, which is okay, but it's just a straight line pointing down, and we're gonna put the ball in the center of it right there, like such. There you go. So we'll use this for a variety of different things. One is start line. Can you start the ball on the line? Also, we'll use it for alignment for the putter face. Okay, so coach has got his putter right there, and so now he knows that his face is relatively square. You can use it for your feet or your eyes or anything, but just creating some form of straight line down on the green or at home in your living room is a really great way for you to improve your putting.
That's perfect. So that laser, like Todd said, I mean, that's something, we got this at Home Depot. I think it costs $2 or $3, so it's not an actual laser for golf, but you find creative ways to find some things. So that's hopefully what you're getting away from this is you don't need to have all these expensive training aids to get better. We're coming up with different ideas right here.
You bet. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the ruler. How are we going to use this?
So this is a basic ruler here, meter stick. And so a big thing with golf, the 3 skills we talked about last week, things that you have to have a great setup, you gotta have good speed control, and then starting or aiming. So anything that you can do to help with your start line, this would be one thing. You take the ruler, okay, you put the ball at one end, and again, very simply, you gotta see if you can get that ball to stay on the ruler for 3 feet essentially, which is a lot harder than it looks. So my recommendation with this is not necessarily put it towards the hole right away.
Yes.
Just work on one skill. And I wouldn't do this for more than 10 minutes. I'd probably do it for 5 minutes. But again, I'm probably going to embarrass myself here, Todd.
I'm glad I'm glad you jumped in there to volunteer, because that's not easy.
If I try to get this face and make sure my alignment's good, see there, the ball scooted off to the right, so I'd have some feedback knowing what my face or my path was doing.
So this is basically working on controlling the face. Is
Correct.
that accurate? Okay. And this is, as Coach Sam said, this is a lot more difficult than it looks. And so I like this drill. It's not a drill, though, that I would have you do for hours on end, because I think what can happen is you get so focused on trying to just start that ball that it can almost be counterproductive. But to hit 4 or 5 on there to kind of get a feel for that, I think is okay. All right, let's show them another way that we like to work on this that isn't quite as...
Yeah, so I'm grabbing stuff, excuse me here, Todd. So all you need for this drill, again, this is another face control drill. Working on just seeing if you can get the ball started on line for 3 feet. Essentially, you're going to take 2 pennies. You're going to take your alignment stick or whatever. You're going to put basically a penny where you're going to start on one side, and then you're going to put a penny on the other side. You're going to put an alignment stick or something to kind of make sure your speed control is well about, I would say, 2 feet behind that. And what you're going to work on is you're just going to see the simple skill. If you can get from 3 feet away the ball to roll over the penny. So this is a great drill to start out with. Again, we're not going towards a hole, but we're very specific in our why and what we're working on here. So I'm trying to get that ball to just roll over, but I'm also making sure that I'm not hitting this too hard where it hits the back alignment stick.
Now, one of the reasons we like to put the alignment rod, like Coach said there, a few feet behind the penny is because one is we want you working on speed, but also if you do, if Coach hit this like super hard, he could just ram it right over the penny. And that's not really the objective of the drill. The drill is to have good face control combined with some actually decent speed on it. So that's really pretty good there. So those are a couple different ways that you can practice at home. Anything from the Reimer here, where it shows you ball position, to an alignment rod, to pennies. We got a toolbox down here, don't we?
We got one to work on path real quick, Todd. So if we have 2 different types here. The golf motion or the path has been said 2 different ways. Some people believe that it's straight back, straight through. Some believe it comes on an arc. Again, I think it's what match up for you, but most good putters have a little arc to their stroke.
Arc, yeah.
So if we put this has some arc if you can't see it, but basically...
What is this one called there, Coach?
It's called the Perfect Putter Swing Arc.
Okay.
So it's a great, again, training aid. You can use this for full swing as well in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
So we like to use this just to put it off our toe line of our putter. So one thing that we'll do with this and making sure that, if you have a good setup, this makes it a lot easier. But and you can do this on the heel line as well, but I like to put the ball where it's flush and making sure my toe is here. And when I'm making strokes, even without the ball, I'm making sure that I have some good arc to my stroke. I'm not coming too far inside, but I'm staying nice and flush without touching that part of the training aid when I'm going back and through. And that's just generally going to set up a good path along with, your good setup and your aim.
Really good visual.
Yes.
Really good visual down there for kind of get a feel for how that works. So some really good stuff. All right, so we're going to start heading we're gonna do some chipping. The guys are gonna grab us a couple wedges and some balls, so we get over there so we can start doing some of that. And keep those questions coming, because we wanna keep hearing from them. We're gonna answer those. And if you haven't already, hopefully you'll subscribe to our channel. Follow us at Sanford Power Golf Academy, our Instagram account, our Twitter account. We got great information coming out all the time that's helping people play better golf. So let's head on over here. We're gonna talk a little bit about some chipping. We'll leave the putters and things here. Here we go, yeah, we can put them right in here, this would be great, thank you, Justin. All right, now, so the first thing, I'm going to grab those from Josh here. So, first thing I want to tell you is, like, if you're going to hit chip shots, you don't have to use real balls, right?
Yes.
We got these foam balls we got from our good friends at Osted's Golf. We love the guys over there, they're great guys, Dave and the whole team over there, Ryan, the whole crew, they're great guys. So we just got these over there so that you can chip around in your yard or in your house. We use them all over.
Tennis balls, I mean, you can really use anything that's going to be softer so you're not breaking anything in your indoors. Make sure you get approval before you do this indoors.
Yeah, exactly. That's the key because we don't want to be hurting anybody. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the setup. I'm going to go through a couple things in the setup, and then Coach Sam will talk a little bit about the motion. What are some things that we can do at home in terms of the setup to check? So here's basically what we want to do, is you want your feet to be certainly closer than shoulder width apart, all right? I like to see the toes, once again, flared out a little bit, kind of like we talked about in the full swing, all right? And then I definitely want to see a little bit more weight on the lead foot, especially when it comes to chip shots, because we're going to talk about a few drills you can do also with chipping that are going to really tie into that. So my toes are flared out, my feet are pretty close. Okay, and I definitely have some weight on my forward foot. Now, there's a variety of different ball positions, and tonight we're not going to talk about all the different trajectories, low, medium, high, but we're just going to talk about a stock shot. So on a stock shot, we're going to see that ball position basically in the center of the heels. Okay, not the toes, but in the center of the heels. That's a key component that I want you to be checking on there. So it's right between the center of the heels. We got a little bit of weight forward. And then the only other thing in the setup, quite frankly, is I want to see a little bit of left aim or open with it. And then I want to see the club shaft in a neutral position to maybe ever so slightly in front. All right, so from down the line view, we're talking about the feet are pretty close, the heels, a little bit of toe flare, a little bit of weight forward, ball in the center with a little bit of forward shaft lean. All right? And those are all things that you can practice at home in front of a mirror. Anything to add to that, Coach?
Yeah, I think just those key things. Chipping is so crucial to get the technique and your setup well, and then from there it's just a lot of reps. Well, one question that came to mind is I see a lot of people, again, not that it's right or wrong, they tend to have wide stance. Why would you maybe want to have that narrow stance?
I like the narrow stance because it really gives you a sense of where your balance is at on your feet. Okay, and we haven't talked a lot about balance tonight, but balance is a key thing, and we can talk about that maybe at the end. But if your feet are a little closer together, it gives you a much better sense of where your balance is at. And when you're hitting high soft shots or any chip shots, controlling the low point is huge. And the movement of your weight is a big impact, has a big impact on that. So feet a little closer together helps you feel where your weight is at, and I find makes you a little bit more stable and solid. What about you? What do you think?
Well, and one thing I think everyone at some point has been taught chipping. So one thing I was always taught, and I'm curious what you think of this, you know.
Spots here for you.
Yep. So like Todd mentioned, you know, the ball position here, slightly hands forward. I was taught chipping this way, and I had my hands way forward, and I kind of had the ball off the back. Now, I could hit some good shots, but what I tended to find is I'd maybe hit it chunky or skull it. You know, what's maybe a main reason that would be happening?
Well, okay, so you're hitting my hot buttons here now. You know, you know about the chipping. So basically, what Coach is saying there, he's bringing up, this is a really, really good point with chipping, is that, and I don't want to dive too deep here because I know we got some drills where some stuff we want to get into, but basically on the bottom of the club is some curvature, so we call bounce. Okay, they put that on there because it makes the shot easier. We've done a couple of videos on this at US Golf TV that are fantastic. I mean, one of them almost has like 3 million views. It's pretty crazy. So bounce is good. That's what I want the viewers to know. Bounce is good. There's a reason that they put that on there. What Coach Sam said is perfectly correct. If you move your hands way, way forward, it's not necessarily good, bad, or whatever, but what in essence what you're doing is you are negating, taking away all of the bounce. So Coach isn't saying that you should never hit a shot with the ball back and your hands forward. We're not saying that. But what we are saying is that when you do that, you take away the bounce and you can really make the shot a lot more difficult.
Great answer. Yeah, I think like Todd said, there's different ways to do this, but just realizing that the bounce is your friend.
Bounces your
Yeah.
breath. I like that. Bounce your breath. All right, so give the viewers some other things that they can do at home. That's a little bit on the setup, things you can check in the mirror. What are some things that they can do at home or in the yard chipping, whether it be with their foam balls or regular balls? What do you got?
I think the first thing that's very crucial with chipping is staying steady and still and having great balance. So one thing that we do, you can do this with chipping, putting, anything, it's a stability drill where we really work on being balanced on one foot, Todd. So you can do it on both feet. I think it's good just to have a little awareness, but where I put this is I'm on my lead foot. Really, it's right in the middle of my foot. When I make this motion, again, keep this handle. See, I already have terrible balance here. But if I keep this handle pretty middle, don't too far forward, too far back, and that's really, again, allow you to really feel where your body's at, and it's going to help you control the low point of the ball.
Yeah, I love that drill. It's one of them that we have all of our students do right away when they come in, even our tour professionals. Hit some chip shots off your lead foot. It really helps you feel where your balance is at. Any other ones? Do we want to talk about a couple other drills or some things that they can do?
I think one other, and it's just good to have some good feel, we're big believers in practicing with one hand or the other. And this is the one that I've learned from you a lot, is working on the right hand. The right hand is definitely a contributor. Now, we may not know it, but it's kind of passively working. So the more that we can, again, learn how to use this right hand, you can do it just with a standard stock setup. You can do it 1 foot, that's kind of advanced. But anything that's going to allow you to kind of let this club work, not really risky, but you're letting it instead of dragging the handle.
Yes.
Again, that's just going to allow you potentially to have better contact with the turf, use that bounce. So we do a lot of shots where we're trying to get this leading edge and the handle working together through the shot. I think you're going to be more consistent with that as opposed to kind of dragging it. And we've all kind of been there on a tight lie where sometimes we chunk it or we might actually lift up on it a little bit and skull it.
Great point. So hitting some chip shots with just your right hand or your
Yes.
trail hand, right hand for us, we're right-handed golfers, be your left hand. We don't want to negate our lefties out there. 'Cause we got a lot of really good lefties at the Golf Academy. Would be your left hand for you. So show them just real quickly because I think this is an important thing. And then we got a lot of questions. Keep the questions coming. We're gonna answer those in just a second. We're gonna do a little speed round. Where do they want the matchup to be at impact? I mean, where do they want the club head relative to the top of it? Where do they want to see? What would be ideal, do you think,
So-
at impact?
Great question. I think it also depends how high you want to hit. Let's say a stock chip shot. We're kind of setting that up. Like Todd mentioned, I think if your hands are slightly in front is okay. Okay, so, but again, relatively, you want this handle and the club working together and hitting that ball. So that leading edge is coming through at the exact same time as that club handle. So I go back, and my club and handle are working together. Now, one of the best chippers of all time is Phil Mickelson, right? Probably got some of the best hand-eye coordination actually in the world. A lot of people tend to see a lot of hinge, okay, and he's even taught this. So there's nothing wrong with that. We see a lot of good players that actually have some hinge, but what tends to happen is at some point, you got to release that angle and come through, and there's just less timing to get that angle through so you can deliver the handle and the leading edge at the same time. So sometimes we see amateurs pull this off. Sometimes they hit a great shot, sometimes they don't. We recommend trying to deliver the handle and the leading edge together first to work on those skills.
That's a perfect thing. All right, so I'm going to give you one other quick drill you can do here at home, and then we're going to do our speed round of questions here. So keep those questions coming. So, Coach, let's get you set up like you're going to chip this one right here, just kind of towards our screen over there.
Okay.
So here's a great drill that you can do. You can do that. We're doing this with the alignment rod. You could do it with a club or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is take this alignment rod, and I'm just going to put it on the target line. So it's just an extension of the ball and the club head right along the target line. Now, what Coach is going to feel here is when he takes that club back, he's going to feel like the club head basically kind of works over that alignment rod. Now, it might be slightly inside that, but we want him to feel like the club head is tracking basically kind of straight back. Now, if you were to take it really strong inside, okay, this is what we see a lot of, okay, really inside, that club will tend to bottom out back and behind the golf ball. All right, so this little simple drill where we get them set up, I'll say, all right, just kind of swing it right back over the alignment rod. That's perfect. Go ahead and bring it back down. Okay, right back out. There you go. And this is where we want him to start that club. And this will help him hit the ground where he wants to, obviously where the ball is at. So this is another simple drill that you can do at home with just a basic alignment rod.
That's a great drill right there, Todd. We're going to continue with the alignment rod if you got this
We like
in your
the
hand.
alignment rods, yeah.
Okay. So all you're going to do, this is also going to help with that general motion to feel kind of out. very similar to the takeaway that we talked about earlier. So if you just basically extend onto the golf club, okay, you just put basically the length of the grip and you grip it, it's gonna be a little different. So if you do this, again, are your hands gonna be a little more forward than we'd like? Yes, but the goal is when you make this motion, if you go back, it's gonna feel like this is connected to your your lead thigh right here. So if you're doing it wrong, like Todd mentioned, and you roll it or the club comes inside, this stick kind of comes off. And tomorrow or on Wednesday, we're gonna give you a great drill with that so you can really work on this move. But again, just making sure that you're connected. I'm not moving a lot. I want to stay nice and centered, but this alignment stick feels like it's staying connected to my leg.
Love that drill. A lot of things you can do with just a basic alignment rod. We did stuff with putting, we got chipping, we got full swing. All right, so we're going to get into some speed run, answer some questions here. Like we said already, Wednesday at 5 o'clock,
Yes.
we're doing drill night. We're going to do our favorite drills. We got our whole staff is going to be here for that. So this isn't going to be just the Todd and Sam show. We got Justin in there, we got Josh in there. We got all types of drills that we're going to be throwing out there. If you love to do drills, Wednesday night, 5 o'clock, that's going to be for you. All right, so let's get into some speed run. Keep those questions coming. We got a few more minutes left before we need to log off. All right, so let's see here. Why do I keep my weight a little forward when chipping? How would you answer that? I got my own thoughts, but what do you think?
I think just in general that sets you up to basically hit the ball. You still want to hit the ball and then the turf relatively. So I think that's allowing. So most people, I would say, unless you're a really, really good player, they just tend to be the opposite. So for us, we tend to deal with a lot of golfers that need that. And also what that does is essentially when I get a little weight left, that's also shifting my center. So think of your sternum, your lead eye. I always like to see kind of that lead eye on front, and that's going to ensure that you hit the ball and then the turf. Not super steep, but enough of that good contact.
Great point. So here's how I would answer that, right along with the same lines of what Coach Sam just said there, that basically the bottom of your swing, relatively speaking, follows the movement of the weight or pressure on your feet. Okay, so in theory, I mean not in theory, but in reality, if all my weight's on my back foot, the bottom of the swing tends to stay back. If all of my weight was on my front foot, the bottom of my swing would tend to go forward. It's precisely why when you're hitting a full shot like a 7-iron, you're shifting your weight from your trail foot towards your front foot because you want the bottom of your swing going forward. So if you're hitting a chip shot and your weight is going towards your back foot, the bottom of your swing is going to go backwards. And so the ability to control the low point or where the club hits the ground is huge. So like Coach Sam said, get your weight a little forward, keep it there, okay? And then also it's why we like our first drill we started with when chipping was with just hitting shots off your lead foot. So that's a really great drill there. All right, so we got a couple more questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick that we didn't write down, didn't have a chance to, but I'm guessing it's about that takeaway chipping drill. Would that work on full swing for irons?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Who asked that question? That's a great question.
Joseph Fry.
All right,
Joseph.
well, he needs to come in here and help us out because he
That's
can teach
right.
it. Thank you for that question.
Yes.
Go ahead, Coach.
So I think that's why a lot of times we see good things and bad habits from just chipping. So, sometimes you want a full swing lesson, we should really just go to your chipping. So to answer your
Yes.
question, yes, the chipping technique is essentially kind of your takeaway. It's just a very simple motion, the start of your entire swing. So it would help with your full swing.
That's just great advice right there. And thank you for that question because we didn't mention that earlier. If we have somebody who hooks the ball, if it's a low hook, they come and say, hey coach, I'm hitting a low hook, I can't get my driver in the air. The first thing I like to do is take them over to hit bunker shots.
Yeah.
And hit a high soft flop shot. Because I know if they're hitting low duck hooks, they can't get loft on the club face. And in a bunker shot, you darn well better have loft or you're gonna have problems, or in a high soft shot. So one of the best ways to teach them that is to hit a short shot.
Yeah.
Just like Coach Sam just said there. And of course the opposite, if somebody's slicing it, we could take them over and teach them how to hit just like a basic little bump and run. So it goes back to earlier when Coach Sam was talking about club face orientation and awareness in your takeaway. If you can't do it in a chip shot, you're not going to do it in your full swing. So really good question there. So at the end of the day, the answer is yes.
Yes.
Thank you for that question. We need to get that guy in here to ask some more. All right, so another one we got here is where should the butt end of the wedge point in the setup? So when you're set up, Coach, where should it point in the setup?
It's a great question. So this is, for lack of a better term, kind of the seam off your pants, just off that. I like that. Or even going up to your left ear would be a great spot. So again, thinking about this this stick right here, this would be in the middle of the sternum. I like to see it kind of working up off of the left ear. That gives you enough kind of forward shaft lean to make sure you're going to kind of compress the ball. Again, we're talking about probably more of just a stock chip shot, and that's, you know, those are some other shots that we can get into hopefully later, but there's some different setup technique that you can do if you want to hit a higher, softer shot.
Yeah, let me add to that. I'm gonna talk about where it should be when you finish the swing, okay, based on what you're hitting. If you're hitting a neutral shot, when you finish the swing, the chip shot, okay, you want the butt end of the club basically pointing right at your center, kind of at your belt buckle, very close to where Coach Sam just said. So if you're set up in this position wherever you're set up at your belt buckle or slightly forward, based on the trajectory of shot you want to hit, okay, that's where you want to finish. If you're hitting a lower shot and you got a little bit forward shaft lean, when you finish it's probably going to be a little forward. If you're hitting a flop shot and it's back a little bit, when you finish it's going to be back. So basically you want it to finish wherever it starts at, and where it starts at is exactly what Coach Sam said is really relevant on the type of shot that you want to hit. So let's do this. We got just a couple more minutes. If you got any other questions, fire those out there. I want to finish up part of the night too though by talking about balance, because we haven't really talked about balance. And you and I need to work on our balance.
We do. I tried earlier. Couldn't even stand on one foot.
Both of us were struggling with that. So what would be a drill or something that they could do at home to help them improve their balance? It's something people don't even think about, but man, you got to have good balance to swing the golf club.
Yeah, this is going to knock out 2 birds with 1 stone, Todd. So you can work on balance and your tempo at the same time. So first off, understanding our balance comes from having a good, basically a stance or a structure. So tend to see people too wide or too narrow. We want to be relatively short, shoulder width apart. But we like to see this, and again, if you have room in your house to do this, or maybe you can get outside, the weather's getting warmer, which is exciting. But I like to see, again, just people kind of working right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot. Again, you don't even have to hit balls, but you're just kind of feeling, again, you're working on some movement, you're working on balance, and you're working on tempo. So I think those 3 things, you see a lot of people do that even on the range. You can actually even do this with chipping or full swing. I have these golf balls. You can do this out in your yard, actually. So again, you just start kind of away from the ball and you work right foot back, left foot through, back through, and you just kind of get closer and you hit the ball a little chunky. And that's going to give you kind of the 3 prongs there. Work on balance, tempo, and a little bit of weight distribution.
I love that. And I'm telling you what, if you tune in on Wednesday, we're going to take that, we're going to add to it with a ton of more drills that you can do. So, hey, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Be sure to subscribe to us at US Golf TV. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Sanford Power Golf Academy, at Twitter. I mean, we're all over the place. Our US Golf TV site. We appreciate you coming in. Hopefully these have been some times where you're learning some stuff about golf, but also you're kind of able to get away from some of the real serious stuff that's going on right now. And as we always say, be sure you're listening to your healthcare providers, doing what you need to do to be safe, because ultimately the golf season is coming, or it's already here depending upon where you're at, and we want you to be able to play this wonderful game and get out and do some stuff. So any closing remarks before we wrap her up, Coach?
I think just 2 podcasts that I've found a lot of really good information. One is Earn Your Edge. So Jordan Spieth's coach, Cameron McCormick, kind of leads that podcast. A lot of great instructors, players on that. Another one is called On the Mark. That's Mark Immelman. These, again, you can find on any podcast. I strongly encourage, because they're just great conversations. You get the greatest minds together and talk about golf.
All right. Well, we appreciate you coming. We will see you Wednesday at 5 o'clock in this same channel, this same place. And that night we're going to talk about drills. We've got the whole staff coming. We look forward to seeing you there. Be safe, and we'll see you on Wednesday.